And you think there's a chance we can make a Stetson hat out of hemp?
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. I think it's clothing. I think it's paper. I think it's a textile, all of that. And the health. I don't think there's anybody sitting on this or that's going to stream this, that's going to see this, that can disagree with me.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about our guest today, Jay Stetson. But before we get started, I want to let everybody know that we've started an educational series every other Thursday. So next Thursday, it's a free series. We're going to be focusing on different topics. And the whole month of April will be about farmers. Next month, processors, then manufacturers, and import-export, all for the hemp industry or people serving the industry or looking to get into the industry. So if you are interested, look onto our website, shoot me a message, mandy@globalhempassociation.org. Other than that, like, share. We'd love to have your comments today. Join in if you guys have any questions for Jay. Other than that, I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself and give me us a rundown about what's your background, Jay, and I guess thank you very much for spending your time with me this morning.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks a lot for having me. We're just I'm a third generation rancher, and we currently live up in Montana and have a ranch up here in Montana. We grew up in Colorado. And
where in Colorado are you from?
Just south of Steamboat, about 20 miles.
Okay. I love Colorado.
Big resort town. So anyway, we've been up here for about 25 years, and I got the fourth and the fifth generation living on the ranch. And what we're trying to do is just make it, we were sort of forced to leave the ranch in Colorado just because it wasn't big enough for the siblings and everybody. So we come up here, but our primary goal here is to try to strategize and to have the ability to where I can hand this down to my son and daughter, and then they can go on and hand it down to the grandkids. And so the grandkids two of them are here living full time, and then the other two come out in the summertime. And we raise old foundation quarter horse lines from the King Ranch, the 4.6s, and some of those big ranches down in Texas. So we have a broodmare program, then we have a cattle operation to where we do a monthly membership to where people can order their own beef, because through this COVID pandemic and everything else going on, a lot of people, whether that happened or not, you just really don't know where your meat's coming from. And I think the younger generation, they care about what they consume and what they eat on a healthy side of things. And with all the GMOs and all the modified stuff out there, you just really don't know what that intake is when you're buying it at the grocery store. That hamburger could come from probably 30, 40 different head of cattle. It's all put into one big processing plant. And to where ours is, we raise our beef, and it's about a 150-day process. And then we have our own processor that processes it. And then we sell that out on a membership deal, and that's at stetsonbeef.com.
Okay.
And then we do a hay operation, and then we got introduced into the hemp probably 2 years ago, and trying to diversify and trying to just see what's out there. So
love it. So I'm really interested in this beef order. I talk about this all the time. I want to order good meat, and I want to have clean meat. I would love to get involved in this. I think this is a great idea. I've talked multiple times about ordering cattle or butchering one and splitting it amongst a whole bunch of us, because I, of course, just have a small freezer. I can't even take a quarter of a beef right now. But yeah, I would love to do this. That's what we're seeing out there too. So we have the option to where people can buy an eighth of a beef or a quarter of beef, or you can just buy 8 to probably 10 to 11 pounds, which would usually fit in, and that's made for a couple, single or a couple, and usually has room to sit in their freezer. And then that's on a membership to where it comes monthly,
and automatically frozen to your doorstep. And we've got clients, a restaurant down in Miami, Florida. We've done restaurants, or a client up in the Panhandle of Northern Michigan. And so we'll be able to get that frozen to you, and then it's an automatic deal every month. And so you don't have to worry about it. It's just like ordering on Amazon. It just clicks every month. And then if you need to customize it, we can customize it or whatever we want to do. So it's a great thing. And very high quality, and it's all prime grade, the best you can buy at any store. So.
Okay, so tell me about Montana. How'd you end up? What were your thoughts moving from Colorado to Montana? Yeah, do you love Montana?
Well, I'd been to Montana when I was younger, and it's one of those things. You travel around. We knew we couldn't afford to live in Steamboat because of the tourists and the value of land, and expand really what our heart and what we were raised doing. And even my grandpa went through a tough times. At one time, he was running about 18,000 acres down there. And, you know, through the tough times, he had to sell off and sell off and sell off. And really what was left, it just wasn't enough to sustain the siblings. And so we traveled through Wyoming and Montana, and we like that 4-season climate, you know, to where it's not just, I mean, I love Florida and I'd like to be down there, or Texas or Arizona climate, but in the summertime, it's sort of nice to have the winter and the changing seasons. And so it's an ag area, and that's where we ended up. Just enjoyed it.
So I'm really impressed with what the government and your senators have done to support Montana's farming and agriculture. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? And what are you seeing from Montana as a whole support, especially moving into a new commodity or a new agricultural commodity of hemp? Because we don't see that across all borders.
No, and I think we'll see what Jim Forte does this year. You know, he just got elected, and we're really liking to see. My biggest thing is, you know, I don't care what political party you're faced to. It's my constitutional rights and my amendments. That's what we were raised on. That's what this country was developed on. And so, you know, it's a touchy area today to be talking about any of this. You know, you hear if somebody supports so-and-so, then all of a sudden their company is banned from all the political world and everything else. You know, it just makes it tough, but I feel they're on the right path. I think they're sort of trying to follow in line with South Dakota and the governor, and I support that, and I hope all of you support that too that are looking at it. But it's our constitutional right, and nobody's extremist. We're just down-to-earth people that are just trying to survive and make a living here. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your journey into the hemp industry. What's it been like, and what are you seeing? Because I know you've had probably a similar experience to most of the farmers.
Yeah, it's been a tough road, and I think at some point in time, I would almost like to be a speaker for the farmers. From what I've experienced, it's hard enough, like I said, to make it in the agricultural world. You got to be diversified. You got to streamline and try different sources of income to make it work. But the first year we found out that, and that was 2019, to grow a CBD crop, Montana is not the best places to do that. We had a lot of people telling us it'll work, it'll work, it'll work. They were selling us the seed, they were selling us the product, yada, yada. But when it comes down to it, with our early frosts and snowstorms that threatened us in September and October, that plant doesn't have the full ability to mature and get into the flowering and its full potential. So the next year, and we just did a very small plot of that. And then the next year, a gentleman wanted us to go into the protein and plant. So we planted about 580 acres, and through the midstream of that season last year, their plants tested hot. Well, they were supposed to have a processing facility set up. They were licensed to process and remediate to remove the hot plants for THC. Montana has a little bit different testing methodology, where if we're growing the whole plant and we're going to use that whole plant for a protein supplement, that whole plant should be tested in my eyes. If they come out there and they test that flower at the top of the plant and then take that back, there's no way we can pass. Because it's such, when you're at a high density and you're putting 25 pounds to the acre, that the crop grows tall, very little leaf, a lot of stem, about probably a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch diameter, and very little flower at that time. So it's very concentrated where they're pulling their sample. So this company was supposed to have a remediation and be able to process it. Well, come to find out, they did not. And so they wanted to go into a seed operation. Well, anybody growing hemp knows that if you're going to plant for seed production, it's going to be a different strain. It's going to be a different planting pounds to the acre. Everything starts from the very beginning, how you plant and what your end result's going to be. And so to change midstream, it's going to be very difficult and to have a good producing crop. So when they went to seed, of course, the crop spent all its energy. We had crop probably roughly 9 to 10 feet tall. I mean, it was a beautiful stand. It was a beautiful crop. Everything worked. But then all of a sudden, when it comes, they want a seed harvest, you can't even get a harvester above the majority of that plant just to collect the seed. And so you got a lot of carbon material in there too. And then when the plant itself has maybe 25 to 50 seeds per plant, where a normal seed producing could have 20 to 40,000 seeds per plant, then the ratio is off. You have a lot of carbon material. And yeah, we did a fairly good job for what we had to deal with, but it just doesn't work. Yeah. Well, the company just backs out, and then they have no credibility, no nothing. So we never got paid at all for that 580 acres. And when you're trying to put that kind of a burden on farmers and ranchers, and you're not gonna, let's see the words. I mean, you have a contract. We had our attorney look at the contract. Everything looked good. But when they don't have the funds to even make you whole for what a normal ranch, what that income would have been for that year, farms and ranches cannot sustain this. So in Montana, I'm going to tell you, is a very hard place to get somebody to grow hemp right now. It's because we've had a lot of bad apples out there, and we've got to weed these guys out. All these farmers, ranchers need a alternative crop, and we need processing plants to where the end product has somewhere to go. But I firmly believe that the way I'm going to approach it this year, if somebody wants me to grow hemp for them this year, they're going to have to put money in escrow. And then I need a payment right after it's planted. I need a payment in the middle of the year. I need a payment at harvest. And then after harvest, maybe 45 days, to give them time to get that product out there to whoever's taking the offtake, to get that cycle started, and get that wheel greased and get things going. But all of that money, I feel, for the farmer needs to be set in escrow. And as long as they have benchmarks, whether it's the planting depth and then whether it's the watering, take moisture tests and pictures of the crop to make sure everything's working. If they meet those benchmarks, they need to get paid until there's some type of system set up. Because just like corn or anything else, yes, we can plant corn today and the commodity price is X amount, and at the fall, it may be more, it may be less, but we know we're going to get paid. Mm-hmm. Farmers need to know they're going to get paid. And I'll tell you, I'm a firm believer in this. My son had a blood disorder, and it's really a long name that I can't remember, but basically had way too many red blood cells and lack of white. Well, lack of white, he couldn't fight the infections and everything else. they found it early, but it was a very serious, and they wanted to do radiation and chemotherapy. And we got introduced to a guy that some hemp oil and some THC, and he was on that for about 4 to 5 months, and he got married July 3rd last year. The doctor didn't know the day he was getting married, but that doctor called on July 3rd in the morning and told him he was cancer-free. And that was amazing. I mean, things were running high. My wife was crying, the son was crying, daughter crying, everybody, and overjoyed, and just couldn't believe the timing of everything, that he's getting married. But I say that because there is so much benefit in this crop. I don't care if you're doing industrial, the oil, if it's going into the textile industry. I mean, there is so much from the root to the tip of that flower. You're going to get benefit out of it somehow, some way. So I really would like to be an advocate for the farmers and for these people that are offering contracts, or these people that are trying to get people to grow for them. They have to realize that this money has to get set aside so people are protected. And we've got to overcome this bad name. And I don't know where it is in other states, but I'll tell you, Montana, it's not a good thing.
Well, I think that it's the exact same. I mean, the biggest challenge I hear is getting farmers. Once we screw them and take their farm, lots of these people have lost their farms. The suicide rates have gone up. Not only, I mean, they're giving away everything that they have into this crop, because when they've planted anything else, they're secured by PACA or any of these other insurances that, you know, secure normal business practice, safe business practices. If you shake my hand and we have a written contract, you're going to buy my product because I meet these terms. That's protected in every other industry except for hemp. And so I'm saying with you, if I'm going to get into business, I encourage any of those guys that are looking to invest and build these processing facilities to make sure that our farmers are secured, because without them, we won't have this. We won't have a crop.
No, you won't. And it takes a lot of acreage. You know, some people say, well, why don't you do 50 acres and try that? Well, you go to some of the big, I spoke with a guy out of Colorado here this week. He's not even interested in talking to anybody that's less than probably 500 acres and has a massive amount of biomass or stock or seeds or something, because it's not worth their time. You know, and then they got to meet so many little people out there. Well, I'm going to tell you, the smaller the grower is, the more risk you have for faults, COAs. Are you really reliable? Are you trustworthy? You know, and so you need that big acreage to get enough product out there, especially in the textile industry. So.
Well, in textiles, people understand that textile industry, something like 8 to 10% of the plant is the fiber, or textile fiber. It's a very small portion, you know. And then you look at not just that, but our automotive industry or kitty litter industry. The volume we would need to produce enough kitty litter or animal bedding, or I mean, massive. So I'm with you. These small farms are. The risk is very high for them, and it's very hard to maintain or compete on these markets if we're not taking care of them. Their loss is.
Yeah, and I'm a small rancher farmer compared to a lot of these big places out there, but we are really at a disadvantage because we don't have the clout. We don't have all the attorneys and the CPAs and everybody else to go to these meetings and these board meetings and talk to these higher companies in these big boardroom meetings to orchestrate the deals. I mean, we're at their beck and call. And so it's a real important fact for the smaller farmers. And I mean, we do about 900 irrigated acres, and it's sizable, but it is really, really small compared to what the vast majority is out there. And so it'd be nice to be able to have some of these smaller farmers and ranchers be able to diversify and be able to increase that income and just be sustainable.
What do you see some solutions are immediately that we as an association can focus on to provide connections or support back to our farmers or back to anybody in this, I say from farm to processing?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question.
What type of services can we really focus on as an association or as whoever's listening, right? Where do we really step in, and where does the focus need to be for farmers and processors, in your opinion?
I think we need to vet. Let's do an example. John Porterfield. Mm-hmm. He's trying to do a fabric and use hemp and to replace cotton or to work with cotton, and whether it's Levi's or whether it's whatever fabrication. Well, I think we need to talk to back east, probably the fabric mills, the yarn mills, timber industry, and get people that are educated, that can speak the language, talk to them, and secure contracts. And yes, we all have to perform, but we need to know where that offtake is going, because if nobody's going to grow, if somebody's going to put the money up, put it in escrow, I'll grow for them, and I don't care, whatever happens. But that's the wrong attitude for me too. I want them to be successful, but they need a place for that end product to go.
I think what I'm finding more and more too in the hemp industry is what you grow determines where it's going in the industry, right? Absolutely. I mean, the textile fiber is completely different from construction materials. And so understanding that if I'm a farmer and my end contract is for textiles and I want to cut costs or I don't do something I'm supposed to, it affects that contract massively. It becomes a waste at that point because if it's not harvested correctly, where in the construction material, it may change that market, right? But I'm with you, understanding I may not need to know once you take it, how you process it or what type of wallboard it goes into, but I need to know that my product is going into that end market and I have a contract and a secured contract for a number of years, right? I want to grow and keep growing. This isn't let's try 10 acres and then next year you're going to go to somebody else, because I can't convince farmers to grow on that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. At the beginning of that contract, you need to know where it's going, so you know what strain to grow, how to plant, how to harvest. The whole thing that has to start right now. I mean, if you're going to grow this year, it has to be happening right now and where that end user is going. But I think from what I'm hearing is some of these people that want you to, the majority of the people that want you to grow for them, I don't know if they have that secured where that end product is going. Well, then that really makes it hard for anybody to grow for them, because if this one doesn't work and we go over here and it comes July, well, I've already planted, we've already grown this strain. And that's why I'm saying that money has to be set up front, so it's not the burden of the farmer. I mean, you're coming to me asking me to grow for you. I'll grow for you. And so now we want you to be successful because I want to grow next year. But if something changes on your end, that should not be our problem at that point.
Bingo. And it's not in any other commodity. It's not when you grow corn or alfalfa or blueberries or wool. It's not. It's all secured in contract. So I like what you said earlier when we were talking about John, and shout out to John. I think he's doing an incredible job at doing exactly what you're saying, is building those relationships with those end contracts, right? Knowing that if I meet these specs for you, you are going to continue to grow and hold up, or continue to buy and hold up your end of the contract, right? And again, somebody coming to you to grow, it's not like John would be coming to you or anybody and saying, hey, I want you to grow and sell your product. They're coming asking you to grow, you grow and hold up your end of the contract, and that needs to be secured. And I think that when we say, where do we need to focus? For the last year, this has been a topic. Getting PACA on board and going after some insurance to secure those contracts for best business. And I think the vetted piece, part of why we built the association was exactly that. I don't know everybody in the industry, but being able to sit where we are, we hear a lot. And so being able to link arms, and it's really quick, like attracts like, and you start meeting people that are hey, I recommend them. I've worked with them. And it's easy for me then to say, I don't have a personal relationship, but so they work with so and so and so and so and so and so, and I've heard great things about them, or I haven't seen any work at all. And so that's that's exactly why I got into this, Jay. Is it was amazing to me how little opportunity there was for people like you to figure this out.
Yeah, it's not an easy road, that's for sure. But I think, working all together, that it can be. And like I said, there's so many benefits in this plant that it's going to be a slow turn of events, but there is so much potential here too.
So in Montana, tell me a little bit about what growing conditions and water. Did you use regular water on your crop? What was did you dry harvest any of it?
All of ours is irrigated, and we run pivots, and everywhere I grew hemp. So the water comes out of the rivers or the canals for irrigation, whatever we're allocated for water rights. So all of ours is under controlled irrigation. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then what about harvesting equipment? And you're talking about the remediation piece, but the equipment to harvest is even something that needs to be considered depending on what market you're going into, or reading in the field versus not in the field. What did you end up doing there?
Well, what our contract was, and that's why I went with them, because they wanted us to basically treat it like hay. So we were going to swath it, rake it, bale it. And the biggest thing is weed control. Again, that depends on your density of planting to control that. And so we were using typical square balers, regular hay swathers and rakes, just like our hay operation. So then we didn't have to go buy a bunch of specialized equipment and everything else. So if, we were taking the whole plant. And so that's why that worked. Now, if you're doing seed, you got to have a combine just to take the seed. Then you got to deal with the stock after that. If you're going for CBD, you're talking handwork. I mean, it's a whole different animal. So again, back to what we were saying at the beginning of the contract, knowing what you're going for, and then you'll know what kind of equipment you need throughout, so you can do your due diligence and be ready to be successful while you're farming. But ours was just typical hay equipment this last year.
Where do you see yourself going? Do you think you're going to continue? I know there's lots of talks about being able to set farmers up and some more security from Montana a little bit, especially where it's been adopted as a commodity. So and of course I'm in Utah, so I compare everything to Utah. We're a little bit behind.
Okay.
And so where do you see the future of hemp for Montana?
I think it's when I talk to the Department of Ag, they're encouraged by it. They want to move forward with it. I know they're working with Canada a lot, or somewhere with the seed production. And I think my plan is I definitely want to move forward with it. We just got to dot our I's, cross our T's, and vet some of these people a little bit better. But I think it's going to be, there's Fort Bend, there's a industrial hemp up there. They seem to have a good reputation, and they're growing for seed basically. And so I've got 2 companies that are talking to me about it. Plus our ground is organic. So that gives me a little bit, we've got 500 acres that is organic. So that gives me a little bit of a different edge to maybe specialize with somebody else that needs organic. But there's some companies that it means nothing to them. And just because of the processing of the end product, depending how they process that. So we feel very strong about it, and I think there is great potential with it. So the states, the testing, I think a lot of that needs tweaked, and somehow we need to get some legal help to where if somebody's growing for flour, then you're going to test the flour because that's their end product. If we're using the whole plant, let's cut the whole plant, grind it up, test it. And we're talking elementary education here. This is not rocket science. This is my 14-year-old granddaughter can figure this stuff out. So I think some of that details needs to work out. But I think also you can't just be pointing fingers, because there's a lot of bad apples out there. And so I think work together with them and get a program. I think that would benefit all farmers. And I don't know what all the other states' regulations are, but I think that would be a big plug for them.
Well, and I think that that's a hard part. These regulations are so different, and they're trying to do their own and write their own. And yeah, I've got one of my members, they're having to test the THC level of their roofing tiles.
Oh,
that puts in perspective where we're at. You know, I think just stuff like that is, like you said, it's very common sense. And I understand regulations have been put in place because there's this fear or lack of control of that flower. What do you do with it, right? And who's to say that it's not a double or dual crop? You know, and I think that that changes when you talk about what are you using it for?
Right.
So it'll be interesting how that part pans out, but it just doesn't make sense to me when the majority of the plant, or all of the plant in some situations, is being used for construction materials or biofuels or plastics or anything. Right?
Snowboards, bicycles. Yeah. I mean, they've got everything. And we talked to a guy actually down in, I think they're in Salt Lake, about pavers or pavement or something like that. And so we got product down there right now being tested. And he brought up the same point. Well, now we got to let it set for X amount of time, see what the THC is coming off of this stuff. And we're talking stock here, using stock. Well, how much? There is no THC in stock. I mean, to even be hardly measured, you know. So it's
just a waste of resources. What a waste of resources. What a waste of resources. You know, a waste of their time, a waste of our time. And reality is this. I think we may even be talking about the same gentleman that said, you know, what are we going to do? Go out and smoke our driveway? You're not. There's not enough in it. There's not enough once processed into a concrete. So silly. So tell me about what would communication look like to the government or from the government? You know, how do we bridge this gap? How do we aggressively move after that?
Boy, you're talking about a world that is just, you know, I'm not very politically correct. And so it's hard, but I think just sitting down face to face with them and you know, it can be that simple that the farmers go up there and talk to them and say, you know, we're not the bad guys here. I mean, if they've got contracts with Coors, if they got contracts with these corn companies and everybody else, obviously they are following a strict protocol, a very strict protocol. So to think that, you know, I think the biggest problem is that the state is worried about, you got some of these idiots, boneheads out there that are trying to incorporate the marijuana plant, hide it out into their hemp crop and trying to get it going or something. And that part of it, I mean, yes, they've got to have that concern, but you know, you could make it really pretty simple. If we caught you one time, you're banned for life. The hell with you. Why do we need to put up with that kind of stuff in the industry? There's a lot of benefits with this industry. If you want to grow marijuana, go grow marijuana. I have nothing against it. But if I'm not licensed to do it and you're growing it, you're out. That's simple. And sitting there with a board meeting, talking to them, I can't believe something couldn't be worked out. To get that lined up and to get that set up, that's not my forte, but I would darn sure be glad to speak and talk to them. That's
well, and that's something that I think these associations, there's so many associations that are focused on that, right? And part of what we want to do is get together with each of those associations and say, what are you doing and what's your strength? How do we support each other? Because I'm with you, though. There's the bad apples are ruining it. They wreck it for regulations. There's regulations that are coming in that are hurting this real valuable piece of the plant that really isn't the threat, right? It's the big opportunity that's ahead of us.
Yes, for sure.
When companies are coming to you to grow, what do you see the majority of the end product being for? You know, if they're growing, where are they asking it to go into? What market?
Well, right now, the two companies that are talking to me One's going into biofuels.
Okay.
I think a small percentage of that. Now they're opening up a stock. They want growers to grow for stock. So I believe that would be going into the textile side of things.
Sure.
And then we have John, which would go into the wool and the cotton, that type of fabric industry. That's what I'm seeing up here. I'm going to have a hard time, somebody coming from back east and wanting us to grow for them. You know, money talks, but that's what I'm seeing up here as far as Montana. But I think it has to do with what the climate is up here in Montana.
Well, and I think just transporting it a long ways, it's just no longer cost effective, right? Processing really has to be within 100 to 200 miles. And I just, absolutely. I don't think we can get away from that.
No, I don't either.
It's just no longer effective, right? What are some of the biggest products you're excited about with hemp? And you think there's a chance we can make a Stetson hat out of hemp?
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. I think it's clothing. I think it's paper. I think it's a textile. All of that, and the health. I don't think there's anybody sitting on this or that's going to stream this, that's going to see this, that can disagree with me. How old are you, Mandi?
40.
All right. When you were 5 years old and your mom or dad took you to the doctor, was the doctor a good thing, a man you could trust? Did you feel at that time?
Totally. Yeah. Different now.
Today, do you have kids?
I do.
Do you trust that doctor, or do you have that local trusted family doctor that no matter what he says, he has your kids' best interest?
I feel like I do, but I don't think it's common. I've been with the same doctor for 20 years for my kids. And so it's different however, new diagnoses, the pandemic, not even pandemic, hemp. As I started attending these hemp meetings and events, I learned really fast that doctors only know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know. And what they're taught is what they believe is right. And I've begun really quick to question what's real and what's needed. And so I think I know where you're going with this, that no, I don't think that that family care doctor is, or trusted person is available anymore.
No, and I'll tell you something here that's amazing and you watch the commercials. We didn't ask for this. We're not publicizing it. We're not anything. We are just absorbing what's on the media and what's on the TV commercials, because everything that they put on the commercial, you either have a death or a suicide or all these side effects. But we have another drug that you can take to combat the side effects of this drug here. Well, what kind of practice is that? That is horseshit in my mind. And so we do not trust these doctors like we did when we were growing up. And the younger generation, they're more conscious of what's put in their body. They do more research. And it's because of the lack of the trust of what has been put out there. So we have a gentleman, and I don't have his permission to say his name, but he had a client down he's in Florida. His wife is in the medical field. They had 116 patients with COVID at the Houston clinic. They got authorization to take half of those clients and treat them on their own regimen, and it included hemp. And every one of those clients were on ventilators. Those 58 clients that he took got off the ventilators and survived and are doing fine. The other 58 did not make it. The medical side of this thing is absolutely huge. But you're talking about big pharma and everything else. you can't compete with them. You can't, I mean, they would just soon put us out because it's a threat to their pockets. That's the bottom line. It's all about money. And when it comes about money and not health, we have a problem. So the health side of this with the crop is absolutely huge to me. For one, what it did for our son, it's personal to us. And we have numerous clients using hemp rub and everything else on their knees, their joints, and they're getting good results. We have some that aren't getting results, but you know what? We're not all built the same, and that's going to happen out there. But the vast majority are getting good results on it and getting, getting better with it. So, saying where I want to see the crop and what I believe, I mean, it's all over the board, I think.
Totally. So knowing farming's coming up and right around the corner, right? What is some, I mean, in your area, right? Knowing Montana or your part of the state, what are some do's and don'ts that these new farmers should really be paying attention to? Some real.
I think they need to get educated and talk to farmers that have grown and for the last couple of years and in their area. There was some guy, my cousin has a CO2 facility, extraction facility in Windsor, Colorado. So some guy called him, perfect example, some guy called him from Wyoming. Wyoming just got passed. I don't know all the rules and the regulations, but they're going to grow. So he wanted to grow 500 acres. I needed all this seed. Will you do all the extraction for me and everything else? And, my cousin just asked him, well, where are you going to, where's the offtake go? He said, well, I'm not worried about that. We just want to get the seeds. We want to get the, get everything planted and get our license and just get into it. Well, when you get into it on that level right there, I'm sorry, if you don't do your due diligence, don't,
there's too much risk.
There's too much risk, and you need a good agronomist. You need to talk to farmers that have grown and find an area that somebody has grown it. I'd be willing to share my equipment with somebody if my neighbor wanted to grow, and then that way cut that cost down and, work together and make it a little more pliable, at least to get the wheels greased and get going a couple of years. So I think really in my mind is if there's a new grower out there, they need to find their area and search the other, because you're going to get a million different answers, but you'll weed out the ones that you don't like and you'll connect with the ones you do and that you can communicate with and feel good about and just pick their brain. And anybody that is loyal to the business and has a good name, they're going to tell you absolutely everything because they have nothing to lose. We just want
to tired of seeing people get hurt. One thing that I've noticed too is people that are in the industry, there's a very big difference, right? It's either everybody's breasting everything, keeping it close to their chest. They don't want to share anything in fear of someone stealing it, or they're doing just what you're doing, sharing everything, because I'm so tired of watching everybody lose millions of dollars knowing that the neighbor down the street has brand new technology that's twice as efficient or, it's hard to watch. So this is exactly where I'm at is I want to build these connections and I want you guys to be able to grow and be successful through a network and by being able to say who's who in the network and who do we go to and what equipment works. And more importantly, what didn't work.
Absolutely. That's the key. You bet.
What didn't work. So on the processing side, equipment side, you still have hemp standing, don't you?
I do.
Tell me about what that looks like. What's so it was grown last year. It's last year's crop. Usually it's harvested by ready in the field, or does it stay standing and then cut? How do you usually do it?
Well, we were supposed to have it done in August, but when they decided to go to seed, then it didn't produce seed. I just quit trying to harvest seed because there was no way that we could. So the best thing in my mind, when you try to store it, when you got that amount of acreage and if you're going to cut it, bale it, where are you going to store it? Then your bottom bales sit on the ground, you have snow, you're going to get a little mold just like hay. So I just vowed to leave my crop standing in the field. And I talked to experts. It wasn't my decision. I talked to a lot of people in the business about it. And that was actually the best place for it right now, is just leave it standing until we figure it out. We're trying to work on a contract, a couple of contracts, one with John and another guy in Colorado for the stock itself. But we just felt it would be best to leave it sit in the field. So then what I'll do, once we get that, figure out which is going, which we're going to have to do this really soon. As soon as the ground dries up a little bit, if things are thawing now, then we'll go in there, we'll cut it, harvest it, bale it, and have a place for it to go. And so, yeah, we've got probably 200 acres still just sitting in the field waiting to be processed.
Awesome. I want to come out and see it. John showed me pictures of it, and I know the other gentleman really well as well. So I'm really excited. You guys are, I don't know what process it is, so I don't want to spill the beans on who's who, but good people. Again, good people that I hope it works out. So, well, Jay, I'm really excited to have you on. I'm happy to help you however I can. We are doing an educational series, like I said, that's focused on farmers for the next 3. We have one tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. with Hannah from Czech Republic. She's been in the industry for a really long time and speaks at lots of different expos, World Ag Expo and Hemp, World Hemp Expos and stuff. But speaking specifically about seeds and farm advice, I'd love to invite you. I'll send you over a link so that you can. But it's just a listen-in farmers Q&A. I will record it for our members, and so I'll make sure that you have access to it as well. But a great way to just have questions answered and meet other good leaders in the industry.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. We'd love to. And yeah, just send me the links. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing, Mandi. And, it takes people in all aspects of the business to get this out and to work together. And you're doing something that there's no way in the world I could even come close to. So we do thank you very much for it. And I know it's tough for us to be on a scheduled time, but anytime we can join, if we don't got something going, I definitely will. And I want to be able to support you. And just another plug, please, if anybody's listening and you care about what you eat, we'd love to have you visit our site at stetsonbeef.com, and we can work out if you're a bigger company or a restaurant, something like that. We do have wholesale also, so it's not on there, but we have that ability. And individuals would love to send you a sample and see what your thoughts are.
I love it. Okay, well, I will definitely be ordering because this is something I was just talking about, Jay. So thank you. And I'm with you. I'm here to support you because I'm not a farmer. I grew up in Wyoming where you think I would. Everybody always asks, oh, you're a cowboy. I even played ball there, but I'm not a farmer. And so however, I do very much know, and I give everybody else out, the advice to take care of our farmers, all of them, because without them, we will not have this crop and we will not have the food that we need. So right now, I think the pandemic exposed that even more. Yeah.
And feel free to give out my information. You do have it. So feel free, if there's anybody out there that wants to talk, hey, I'm an open book, and so no problem.
Jay, I look forward to it. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
All right. See ya.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.